All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Whirling Fortress. We got another couple of special guests with us here talking more esports and education. In our last segment, we had kind of gone through and we talked to SH Yeet, and we had talked to him about his study that was an analysis of a variety of esports programs and some of the, the downstream socioeconomic impacts from a variety of different situations. And we're joined now by Samantha Anton. She's the Chief Operating Officer of the North American Scholastic Esports Federation. And then Mark Depp, who is the Director of the UCI Esports, as well as the Commissioner for the North American Scholastic Esports Federation. And they're here to kind of talk about the other end, which I kind of feel like is a solution to some of the things that we were previously talking about. So how are you guys doing? How are you doing, Mark and Samantha?
I'm great, and always pleasure to be on a call with Samantha, who's doing great work with NASEF and someone I've gotten to work with for several years.
Yes. I think, Mark, this is the start of our 9th year knowing each other. So we're going to hit a decade pretty soon. But really excited to talk about this. And this is actually a study that we had talked about a few weeks ago on the weekly Esports EDU Twitter chat / Twitch stream. So when you reached out, Lux, I was really excited to be able to keep talking about it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, I mean, if you've already talked about it, so what are some initial thoughts that you might have on the, on the study and some of how that applies to some of the work that you're doing at NASEF or some of the work that's going on at UCI as well?
Yeah, I think with a lot of how I think that the high school scene has been built out specifically, I think a lot of it is inspired from what's been working at different colleges. But I will say, when we say what's working, it's really what's like apparent out there, and what people are publishing and sharing out. So I am a little biased because I am under UCI and was an AIDer myself. But I think what UCI does well specifically is just having an open sharing of knowledge for folks. And that becomes something that other people can adopt in different places. But it does tailor to a specific group of students. And we see it in the high school scene too, where the demographic of College League of Legends and the demographic that I see in our students that compete in our tournaments do seem very similar, which is mostly white and Asian males. And so this study specifically in looking at the colleges, I do think that there's a lot in the high school and middle school space that we need to look closely at, specifically on community building and the importance of that. So those are, I guess, a brief, not so brief initial thought on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and similarly, I mean, when I first read the study, I mean, it certainly resonates. Like everything in there is exactly what you see and feel in the college esports space. And actually, the white paper they referenced from AnyKey was based on a conversation that we hosted at UCI with a bunch of collegiate esports leaders, the AnyKey folks. And so we've been talking about this since literally the week after we opened our arena in 2016. And it's, I guess, disappointing to see we haven't made any real progress on this. And I guess, yeah, I feel like it's something we've talked about in terms of like, here's some things we could do and maybe it'll work. But I think after 4 years of our program existing, doing some stuff and maybe it will work, I think is carrying less and less weight. Like that excuse or that kind of justification isn't going to get us by very much longer. So we finally have our first female varsity scholarship starter on our Overwatch team. We have a very good Overwatch team, by the way. So we were top 4 last year. So anyways, 1 out of 26 players is not where we want to be. It's certainly not what I think our college leadership wants to see, not what higher education wants to see. So yeah, I'm happy this article was written because it certainly points out some glaring discrepancies that everyone in the space is very aware of. And we're eager to find out what we can do and what levers we can pull to change that up.
Yeah, I think kind of talking about that, like maybe let's disaggregate a little bit in terms of NASEF and UCI, because I found like NASEF's work particularly interesting, as Sam was mentioning, that it's definitely a younger age group that you're working with, and it's because I sometimes wonder when we're dealing with a lot of these problems that are definitely pervasive in overall society, how much impact that we can have in our community when a lot of these things are kind of downstream of some of the cultural shifts that exist beyond the scope of what we try to do day in and day out. And it's it's crazy. I don't know if it's crazy to me, or maybe I guess it just makes sense that we kind of see this issue playing out even at the younger ages. I guess if do you think it might be helpful to get how young do you think we need to get, or maybe there's something that we even have to get into parent education and things like that to start meaningfully addressing?
I mean, part of it is, you know, essentially by bringing esports into schools, we are teaching a culture. And the culture that's mostly being taught at so many schools, it feels like, is similar to that collegiate pro league style opportunity. And so I think, yeah, and there's been so many games-based programs for years and years that I think we do need to start making the connections too, and just think broadly about what it means to participate in esports. And that's really, you know, when you talk about going younger, it's not necessarily that we want elementary school kids to learn League of Legends and that's how they're going to be prepared for college opportunities or whatever in League of Legends. I think in elementary school, you know, is that when we start talking about internet safety, you know, especially now with distance learning and things like just creating a profile and, you know, how you keep yourself safe and things to look out for, and also creating spaces for them too. You know, I think it's important that, especially now with distance learning, that schools are thinking about how they can connect the students together in spaces outside of the classroom to keep, you know, to just have a space where they can make whatever with it, but they're safe. You know, they know who's in here. If there are ground rules in the community, they know to follow them. And so there is an opportunity to go into elementary school, but I don't think it's necessarily we're teaching MOBAs. I think we're teaching the pieces that are important so that when they do get to the older levels, they're choosing their own adventure and picking what they want.
And I think that just hearing that from you, like I agree, like absolutely. I think that a lot of times when we look at things, especially like when it comes to like minorities and like people like who aren't getting what they need, like a lot of times like, oh well, in college we feel like they should be able to get these things, right? But a lot of times the cutoff point, like they may not even get there because of them already being disenfranchised at that point to such an extent, right? And so it's important to understand that we can get more to the source, and like you said, doesn't need to be the MOBAs, but we can start talking about internet safety. And of course a lot of people are talking about that right now. Obviously like Social Dilemma came out, but a lot of people in the gaming and tech space, we've known this, right? Like we know that we are the early adopters of technology, and thus there's like sometimes the stuff hits us even harder because of that. And so it's very important for us to be aware of those things and be able to shape that culture in a better way, an inclusive way, so people can be aware. And then I think that starts the process of being in a better place, or at least people being at a better point to where we can have that discussion to make that true change. So I agree with you completely.
Yeah, I think that like the whole concept of just education, especially in terms of the kind of education that is going to promote safety and just teach somebody to interact with people better and just, you know, understand things better, is super important, you know, at a younger age. I think just in general, it goes for anything in life. You know, it's like how you're raised, how you absorb things as a child really shapes who you are as a person. And what we want here is, you know, a better community of people interacting with each other. So having that foundation is super important. If I'll make a really lame reference, you might even think, if you guys watch the classic Pokemon anime, there was that one thing where the Pikachu defeats the Raichu because the Pikachu learns a skill that it can only learn as a Pikachu, whereas the gym leader, I guess, like rushed his Pikachu into a Raichu and it couldn't learn that. And it's a lot easier to learn things
true.
when you're younger.
Yeah,
Yep.
it
Yep.
is. True,
It's canon.
Yeah.
I use that reference in Smash coaching all the time, by the way. Figured it would be good for this too.
You gotta go back to the fundamentals, you know, sometimes.
The foundation, man. Gotta look at the foundation for sure.
And I wanted to add real quick.
Oh, Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you mentioned about like what age, and I've talked to an education PhD student at UCI, and
Mhm.
they suggested that, and we tie STEM and esports together a lot. I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of connections, so this is why I'm making this reference. But that person said that young kids decide whether they are good at STEM fields by the age of fourth or fifth grade, and at that point, they either identify like STEM careers as an opportunity or not. And so when I think of esports, I see several factors that are keeping, whether you're talking about minorities, women, or other underrepresented groups. I think it's due to two factors. One is encouragement at a young age or opportunity at a young age, whether their brother was encouraged while a daughter was not encouraged, or while uh, they couldn't afford the technology at a young age. I think opportunity and encouragement at a young age is really important. That's factor one for me. And the other one is what we're talking about: internet safety and culture. And if you get bullied just for your identity or the sound of your voice in a team game online, or someone finds out something about you and they feel like that doesn't reflect what a real gamer looks like, those to me are the two factors that push people out. But I think it's really important that when people are in fourth and fifth grade, they feel like esports or video games is a community for them or opportunity for them. So I just want to say, when you're thinking about age groups, where NASEF's like focused on high school and maybe dabbling in middle school, but I'm
Right.
telling you, like, identities are formed much earlier than
Yeah.
that, and I think we got to look at much younger in terms of where we're letting people fall off the bandwagon.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So,
Yeah, it's not. Oh yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
Dan.
I was just gonna say. So, I mean, I think that we're definitely all in alignment there, right? Where it's like people need to start looking earlier, right? This stuff is a lot of times people don't recognize how powerful it is. I feel like people talk about it in passing about the childhood, and like we need to focus on children, like how these things are gonna. If we, you know, if we're not encouraging, right? If we're dissuading people from looking at these things, if we're calling them stupid or like nerds because they just want to be on the computer, or like, oh, a girl's not supposed to do that, right? Or like, oh, black people don't do that, or whatever it may be, like it's so impactful, right? And so I think we all understand that, at least here in this room. But so I mean, of course, that's something that we need to do, right? Start helping build a better culture there. But in the meantime, what do you believe that we can do on the collegiate side to continue to improve the circumstances and situations as, I guess, like the new generation catches up in time, right?
I going back to the comment I made earlier about, like, we've been talking about welcoming people and being inclusive for a long time, and you can have an inclusive culture, but if that's not enough, and I would say we've been doing this for 4 years, and I feel like talking about it is really not enough. I would say I was hesitant to talk about Title IX 4 years ago, or things as transformative as creating laws and like really big rules that shape the whole ecosystem. But I honestly think it's going to need something like that. And Title IX is not a perfect law or rule or regulation. Maybe we could do something better in the world of esports, but it certainly has transformed opportunities for women. And so I don't know. I think it should be on the table. If teams had to have equal numbers of scholarships for women as they do men, I think young girls would know there's opportunities, and maybe they would see role models because there were opportunities. And so I think it may need something like that. And I guess I'm both tired of saying, like, let's just be inclusive and welcoming, while also watching it not really move the needle. And I feel like my leadership and the folks I work with and talk with have higher expectations. So I think it's going to take more than just uh, lip service, I would say, at this point.
No, hey, absolutely, absolutely. It needs to be more than that. Like, we're not gonna get anywhere here if we're like, oh yay, we're all involved and stuff. It's like you can say that, but some of those people, because we're not doing what needs to be done, they don't even get to a room to have that discussion, right? And that's therein lies the problem.
Well, I've been breathing fire